year was 1817. The place was Adams, Tennessee, a frontier land of deep woods and silent rivers. John Bell, a hard-working farmer and a man of God, had moved his family from North Carolina to start a new life. He was a man of logic, a man who believed that the world was governed by the laws of nature and scripture. But in the late summer of that year, the laws of nature began to break. It started in the cornfield. John Bell was walking his property when he saw a creature that should not exist. It had the body of a large dog, but the head of a rabbit. He fired his gun, but the creature vanished into thin air. He thought it was a trick of the light, but it was a warning. Soon, the sounds reached the cabin. At first, it was a faint scratching at the outer walls. Then, it became a rhythmic thumping, as if something invisible were trying to kick its way through the wood. Within weeks, the scratching moved inside. The Bell children, Elizabeth, Richard, and Joel, awoke every night to the sound of invisible rats gnawing on their bedposts. They felt their blankets being pulled off by unseen hands. John Bell kept it a secret. In the 19th century, a haunted house was a sign of sin. But the entity was hungry for attention. It began to whisper, a low, distorted mutter that sounded like a woman reciting scripture. Backwards, the peace of the Bell farm was dead. The haunting had begun. As the months passed, the thing in the Bell house found its voice. It was no longer just scratching. It was speaking. It identified itself by many names. Some called it Kate, a neighbor with whom John Bell had a legal dispute. But this was no ordinary ghost. The Bell Witch, as she came to be known, was intelligent. She could be in two places at once. She could quote sermons from churches miles away that she had never attended. She would sing hymns in a beautiful, terrifying soprano, then scream in a voice that sounded like tearing metal. The entity focused its hatred on two people, John Bell and his youngest daughter, Betsy. Whenever Betsy's suitors came to visit, the witch would slap the girl's face, pull her hair, and scream at the young men until they fled in terror. Word spread across the South. Skeptics arrived to prove it was a hoax. They searched the house. They held the family's hands. They checked for hidden speakers, which didn't exist in 1818. Every skeptic left shaking, or worse, injured. The entity was physically violent. It didn't just haunt the house, it occupied it. By 1819, the fame of the Bell Witch reached Nashville. It caught the ear of General Andrew Jackson, the future president of the United States. Jackson was a war hero, a man who feared no mortal. He famously said, "I would rather fight the British Army than deal with the Bell Witch." Jackson arrived at the farm with a wagon of men and a witch tamer. As they approached the property, their wagon suddenly stopped. The wheels were turning, but the wagon wouldn't move. As if held by a giant hand, suddenly a metallic voice rang out from the trees. "All right, General, let the wagon move on. I will see you tonight." That night, the witch tamer pulled out a silver pistol. Before he could fire, he was pummeled by invisible fists. He was kicked, bitten, and dragged across the floor until he ran out of the house into the woods. Jackson was fascinated. He stayed the night, listening to the witch argue politics and religion. By morning, the general left, saying, "I have seen enough. This is a power beyond man." The entity's primary goal became the destruction of John Bell. She called him Old Jack and swore she would never leave until he was dead. John began to suffer from strange tics. His tongue would swell, preventing him from eating or speaking. His face would contort in pain, as if he were being stuck with needles. The witch would mock his pain. She would laugh while he wept. In December 1820, John Bell fell into a deep stupor. His son, John Jr., went to the medicine cabinet to get his father's tonic. Instead, he found a vial of strange, smoky liquid that no one recognized. The witch's voice filled the room. "I put it there. I gave old Jack a big dose last night, and it fixed him." The liquid was a deadly poison. John Bell followed shortly after. At his funeral, the mourners were interrupted by a loud, joyous voice singing drinking songs. The Bell Witch was celebrating her victory. She had killed the master of the house. After John Bell's death, the entity grew quiet. She promised to return in 7 years, and she did. She then promised to return again in 1935. Many say she never truly left. Near the farm lies the Bell Witch Cave. Even today, visitors report feeling a heavy, suffocating air inside. Cameras fail. Audio recorders pick up whispers. Is the Bell Witch a demon, a curse, or something we cannot name? To this day, the Bell Witch remains the only haunting in American history where an entity is officially credited by a state's historical records with causing a human death. The story of the Bell Witch isn't just a ghost story. It's a reminder that even in our modern world, there are corners where the shadows are thick and the whispers are real. If you ever find yourself in Adams, Tennessee, standing in a quiet cornfield as the sun goes down, listen closely. You might hear the scratching, you might hear the singing, and you might realize that Kate is still watching. Sleep well and keep your medicine cabinet locked.